Tashide Lake and welcome to In Conversation with Tibettv. Many documentaries have been made on His Holiness the Dalai Lama, yet Wisdom of Happiness, the latest, offers something uniquely profound. This film brings audiences into a direct and intimate dialogue with His Holiness the Dalai Lama as he shares his timeless wisdom on inner peace, happiness and building a harmonious world for the 21st century. The film is directed by Barbara Miller and produced by Philip Delecay alongside award-winning Swiss photographer Manuel Bauer. Wisdom of Happiness recently premiered globally at the Zurich Film Festival with support from Hollywood icons Richard Gere and Oren Moverman, as well as Jizum Pema, sister of His Holiness, and Sikyom Pemba, sitting of the Central Tibetan Administration. Today, the film's director of photography, Manuel Bauer, joins us here in Dharamshala for the Indian premiere at the Dharamshala International Film Festival, and we are delighted to speak with him about this exceptional work. A bit of a background on Manuel Bauer: he has been Dalai Lama's official photographer for over 3 decades and is one of the most celebrated photographers in the German-speaking world. His portfolio includes widely awarded Photo Report, Escape from Tibet series from the 90s, and Journey for Peace, the 14th Dalai Lama, and many other distinguished works. Manuel, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for inviting.
So congratulations on the world premiere of your film, Wisdom of Happiness. So the film was premiered at Zurich Film Festival last month in October, right? So can you tell us how was the reception there by the Swiss people, and how did it go?
Well, it went extremely well. Well, also thanks to the presence of Richard Gere. This helps a lot, and he's very active in promoting the movie. He also contributed a lot to the movie with his knowledge, and yeah, it was received very well. I mean, it's the fastest sold-out movie in the history of Zurich Film Festival. So, well, it felt well. It felt good.
Okay, and also, can you tell us? This documentary, Wisdom of Happiness, on His Holiness the Dalai Lama, how is it different from the other documentaries made on His Holiness? And in your view, what should the audience expect from this film?
Well, it was, I'm really impressed by the production. Philip Delecay and Barbara Miller, they put in a lot of effort. For instance, in the beginning, we screened all the existing movies, really all, even if His Holiness appears only a minute or two, and we analyzed them to not do the same thing over and over again. And then, maybe as sad these events were, but the whole process of producing this movie kept always creative, because first we wanted to follow His Holiness around the whole world and show him active, but then 2018, His Holiness started to stop to travel long distance, then COVID came. So we had to be creative to do that movie. And we were very lucky of somehow in the beginning already did a very important decision, which was His Holiness talks directly into the camera. And we had a very simple setting. His Holiness in front of a black background, just showing him alone, no Buddhist background that you usually see. So the uniqueness about this movie is that you really experience His Holiness very direct and close. You feel like you sit on a table with him having a conversation. When you sit in the cinemas, you feel he directly talks to you. And I think that was a very good decision. Also to give something that we can really have His Holiness in a very close, also emotional, personal moment, now that he's not so active anymore. Mm-hmm.
And in this film, can you share with us your role in this film, and can you also share about the insights into your fellow directors and producer?
Well, it didn't start with me. I never would dare to do a movie. I never did a movie. I'm a photographer, and I have big respect of the motion picture. It's a different profession. So I never would have had the idea to do a movie about His Holiness. So I was approached by Philippe Delaky and Barbara Miller and one other person who brought us into contact, Walter Kamm. And so we sat together, the four of us, and then developed the idea. So the initiative came from these three people. And then Barbara Miller follows His Holiness for a long time, since her youth. She's watching teachings and attending teachings. Philippe Delaky didn't have yet a relationship to Tibet or His Holiness, but he is a very intelligent person, and immediately he wrote the books and was into the topic.
So the film was entirely shot at His Holiness Dalai Lama's residence right here in Dharamshala. So how's the duration like for shooting this whole?
Well, it's we worked 6 years on the movie, but shooting was 5 years. First there was a year of preparation and also looking for finances and all this. And then in 2019, in August, we started with the first production of the movie. And from then on, I was in Dharamshala, yes, at the residence of His Holiness, but also we added a lot of imagery to contemplate and imagine and somehow understand what His Holiness is talking about by adding images from all over the world. And many of it might be just landscape, maybe in Ladakh, or just to give time for people to reflect on what His Holiness teaches. So part of the movie is this great interview that we got. His Holiness was really, really precise and into the moment, and it's really beautiful, his energy in that interview. And the rest of the movie is different materials, a lot of archival material. We were privileged to get from the private office all the old reels, and we digitalized them high standard in Switzerland. And so this is unique. You see archive material, you might know the clip, or you might have seen some of it before, but you never saw it in that quality. And then we show also the modern world. So I would say visually it's the three things. It's the interview, it's the archive, the old materials from Tibet, from exile, and then it's more general imagery about our world, about the problems we live in these days.
So from technical and visual perspective, how did you approach the visual style of Wisdom of Happiness? What aesthetic choices did you make to convey the film's themes?
Yeah, it's, well, one thing is, as I said, to make His Holiness. He always says, I'm a human being like everybody, and that's why we set him on eye to eye, and so this is, I think, a very strong image. And the rest is a very simple way of filming. I actually stayed like, it was a decision amongst Philip, Barbara and me, that actually I stay more or less like a photographer. So the images are not they're very simple. There is no much movement. They're very quiet to get the audience time, I mean, to understand what His Holiness is meaning and to somehow have got it inside and live it, you know. And then the more aggressive or more fast images are mainly archive images for our time. So there is news images, fast things about our problems, climate change, economics, you know, gaining money, wealth, stress. These are images I didn't do. We took existing ones to show our times. Yeah. But my imagery is very quiet images, and they also in the editing, they stand quite long to give you peace and time to listen to His Holiness.
You have been photographing His Holiness for the last 30 years, right? 3 decades. And you have been following His Holiness around the world. So was there any moment during this filming His Holiness Dalai Lama that has profoundly impacted you on a personal level? And can you share with us some of those moments?
You mean in these 30 years, or now for the movie maybe? Yeah.
Now for the movie.
Yeah. I mean, filming is completely different technically, but also when you look at it. And I mean, I was allowed to photograph His Holiness in very private moments, and also in retreats, in deep meditation. And photography is one way of showing this. But when I look now at the motion picture, I was allowed to film meditation of His Holiness, his routine, and it's so beautiful. If you see, I was allowed to get close, and it's very intimate when His Holiness is by himself in a room meditating. But now I mean, photography is more abstract. And now in the motion picture, when you see the movement in his face, how he prays, and what his eyes are doing, what his hands are doing, it touches me a lot. And it's like a new experience for me to see this in film, what I before experienced trying to think in still images, you know what I mean? Now when you see His Holiness quietly meditating, and maybe you listen to his voice, what his message is, the same time you see what is going on in his mind to meditate on these things. It's extremely beautiful to see what his gesture, his his face is doing. It's so beautiful, and I'm very touched seeing it in the movie when you just see him sitting in meditating. It's different than in photography. It's definitely something I'm happy that it exists now, also for the future as a document.
Mm-hmm. You have known Matthew Ricard, right? So he's in your. He has actually written this article, something about photography, right? And he's. I think it's titled "The Photographer and the Master."
Maybe, I don't really remember, but yeah, it's a portrait about me. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually in there he's written about how he looked as a photography, how he photograph, how do we think when we photograph or someone like His Holiness, his approaches and your approaches. So can you tell us a little bit about how do you have been photographing His Holiness for many years? So how do you approach this?
Well, I think for me it was a big privilege that Matthew wrote for our book in 2005. And I was puzzled because I didn't realize, I mean, he's a very good photographer. He's a scientist, and he's an excellent, I mean, he really knows about Tibetan Buddhism. And so I was very touched at how he put it in words. And what he said maybe later, just between of us, it's a big difference. He being a disciple and me being more the journalist, and both are very important. So my position as a photographer, I mean, I respect His Holiness the most. You know, I have big, deep respect, even growing respect all over these years. But now I always have to tell me I'm in such a privileged situation only because I'm a professional photographer documenting His Holiness for us now, but also for future generations, for scientists who want to study His Holiness visually. So when I have the privilege of being so close with His Holiness, I always tell myself, hey, I'm not here as a private person. I'm here, I have a big responsibility to use this privilege to do a good picture. And this is a lot of pressure. It sounds, I hear a lot, oh, you're so privileged to have this access. But I tell you, this is hard because I don't want to disturb His Holiness. I don't want to be there when he's meditating because I feel horrible to move or to click the camera, disturbing him. So it's a very hard emotional work to calm me down, not be nervous, and go into the professional position of doing that good image. Otherwise, there is no reason and no right to be there and disturb. So this is quite hard work, and it's demanding. Yeah.
Okay. And what were some of the most challenging shots to capture in Wisdom of Happiness, and how did you overcome these difficulties?
Well, again, it's the same situation. To be in the room alone with His Holiness when he's meditating, you know. There is such a big responsibility to bring good image out. That's a big challenge. But then there was other challenges, technically or traveling, or some I put me even, it sounds stupid now, but I put me in stupid, dangerous situation to have a good image. I all alone went on a glacier because we in the team thought it would be nice to have some ice caves. And I shouldn't have done that. I know a little bit of mountaineering. For this movie, yeah. Okay. It's a sample of what imagery is in there. For instance, there is this ice cave. But, and I know a little bit of mountaineering and the dangers. But if I want an image, I give 100%. And I went too far there. There was danger of the rock falling, and I put myself in big danger, and you shouldn't do this. It was just stupid. I couldn't wait for the next morning when it was colder and there was no rock. But once I'm in my flow to take a good image, it's difficult to control myself. So there was difficulties, access, and not disturbing His Holiness too much. But then also there was the usual difficulties as a journalist.
Okay, and can you tell us about your collaboration with the director and the production team of this film, and how did you work together to align your vision and create a cohesive film?
It was a very creative project. We were very privileged to have private funding by Tashi Albertini and the Giuseppe Kaiser Foundation and Valocam. So we had a lot of freedom to be creative. If you have the money, let's say, from a TV station, you're kind of in a corset. There is structures that you have to fulfill. But these people who supported us, Tashi and Valo, gave us a lot of freedom to be in a creative process. The movie is completely different than what we wrote in the beginning. It changed completely. So it was a lot of long searching and doing rough cuts that we started over, and we had different editors. And the good thing in the team is everybody somehow worked very hard also as an individual. A lot of the filming I did all by myself. The good thing is these days with small cameras, you don't need a crew. So very often I was alone. But then Barbara worked on the content and the putting together the movie. And the good thing about Philip is he's not just a producer in the sense of keeping the project together, looking for the money, bookkeeping, all this. He invested a lot. And that's why he's one of the directors now in the content of the movie. He was there cutting, editing as well, together with Barbara, sometimes with me, just giving a little bit of input from myself. So it was a team where all of us somehow did more, involved themselves more than just a position. Philip was not just a producer, he was also a director. I was not just a cameraman. I was also the bridge to His Holiness and the connections and the private office, my experience. And they asked me for my thoughts. Barbara also does a lot of the legal stuff as well. So all in the team had several positions and several qualities, and all together I think made it possible. And then we had the big luck that Richard Gere and Ora Moverman joined. So and again, there was a big energy and professional knowledge coming into the project. I think all of this made it a good movie, if I may say so.
And documentaries often involved like unexpected moments. How did you adapt to capture spontaneous events or changes in the story as they unfold?
Again, it's a big privilege to have freedom of reacting to them. Very often you have a very narrow setting of what you have to bring home as a journalist, but our concept was always evolving and getting better, and the sponsors really believed in us and gave us that freedom. So that's how we could react on difficult situations. I mean, COVID came. His Holiness was, you know it, His Holiness was not appearing in public for a long time. So we had to rethink I mean, this is a big challenge for a documentary. First we thought, Manuel has this access and he follows His Holiness around, show this active person. I mean, His Holiness is immense. The discipline and how much he contributed, how much he gave, how active he was. I saw this, it's incredible. It's nearly impossible how active he was, how much energy he had. And actually the first idea was that instead of a still camera, I follow His Holiness with a movie camera. But it didn't work. There was COVID. So we rethought, so big challenges for a project. And maybe in another setting one would have said, drop it, we stop, don't spend more money because there is COVID. But we creatively rethought the project and it adds to the quality. It's a different movie now and it's a better movie than we have thought of.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to the previous question, I've asked you about what your idea of the, what have you learned from about happiness during the filming, right? If you can share us, what insight did you gain about happiness and wisdom in general in your own life?
I mean, as a photographer, you are an observer. And as a photographer, maybe different to a writing journalist, you open yourself emotionally a lot because you have to have the knowledge. The rational thing is all there because you have to know, the subject, you have to study the subject, you have to have the strategies. When am I where, not to miss anything. It's a lot of preparation, which door His Holiness is going out. I have to be first maybe, otherwise, if he goes into a lift and it's packed, I'm out the whole day, I might not catch up. So there's a lot of thinking, technical things. But while you're photographing, you push this all aside. All your senses open to capture the atmosphere, to think what's going on in His Holiness. What is the reality that I need to capture? What it's all about, this image. It's a lot about, it's the guts, it's the ears, it's even smell, it's the movements. Is it fast? Is it slow? So I think you really need both sides of your brain, the rational, but also the emotional and intuition and all this. So being with His Holiness and opening all these senses, it's incredible what you gain and what you learn. And it's all going to one center. It's all this one single point, and this is compassion. And when you have the privilege to see His Holiness in all these different activities, and it's always compassion. And that is a great teaching, because that's the only base we have to work on and we have to create in ourselves. It's all about compassion, everything. And through that, with that motivation, controlling our negative emotions. And wisdom of happiness is not just about wisdom and about happiness. It's about what tools we have to solve the problems of our time. And all the problems, name it, climate change, politics, war, hunger, actually most of these problems, nearly all, they base in negative emotions. It's us who create them by greed and, jealousy, hatred, all the negative emotions. And His Holiness talks about this problem. And if we would manage to learn about our negative emotions and to deal with them and transform them, we would solve all the problem. Actually, it's very simple. It's not about one solar panel or something like this. That comes anyway if we really control our emotions and think, how can we save this beautiful planet? Because we are eating up the thing we live for. And that's also part of the... So it's not only wisdom and happiness, it's also a political movie in a sense of the problems we live in these times. And His Holiness explaining us the solutions to...
And climate change is one of the biggest problems we are facing right now.
definitely a huge problem. Yeah.
Manuel Bauer, who do you look up to as your idol photographer? Do you have any?
Yes, sure, I had, especially in my early days. It's good to have somebody to look up and to learn. But then very early, it was not a big hero. It was my colleagues. We worked together in a group. We had an agency. And I learned a lot from people maybe nearly on the same level, seeing exactly, precisely how they work and what a good image is. So it was more on a conversation, dialogue level that I had my colleagues that I admired. And now I would say it's Tenzin Gyatso. Tenzin Gyatso from, what he does. I know how difficult it is to photograph His Holiness in all this security and settings and crowded situation. Tenzin Gyatso is an excellent professional. I admire him.
So I have a lot of questions, but for this conversation, I want to sign off with one last question, which is for aspiring cinematographers and documentarians, what advice would you give for creating an impactful visuals that resonate the viewers on the emotional level?
Well, first, I want photographers to go to Tibet and document. I know how difficult it is. It was difficult back then, but I mean, it's another chapter now with all the surveillance. But I would love to see good documentations from Tibet. Well, it's not easy. But I think as more dedication, as more time you invest in a project, it's difficult, but as better it gets usually. So I think it is a lot of dedication and to stick to one subject and go deeper and deeper and to really make it to your own quest, I mean, that's the difference between maybe written journalism a little bit to photography. There is this tradition of being concerned and involve yourself in a subject and put all your energy and maybe for a good cause. I mean, it's really very, very important that we work together, especially in the Tibetan community. As an observer, I think it's really the time now to unify and not to work against each other or to get caught into some political or regional or clan kind of, don't use your energy for this, use it for the better cause. And that's also, the media can add a lot to this, to unify and you have all the same goal and you have to see that goal anymore. And divide and rule is a very simple way of of destroying a people. And work together, join each other. His Holiness always say it's about dialogue, and it's not about we and they. We have to work together, and I think as journalists and photographers we can contribute to this. This would be very helpful.
Manuel, thank you so much for talking to us about your film, Wisdom of Happiness, which is going to premiere at India Premiere in Dharamsala International Film Festival on Thursday,
yes,
10:45 a.m.
Yes. At 7th of November.
7th of November, yes. And thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you and having you here on our program. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your interest.
Yeah. With this, we have come to the end of today's program of In Conversation with Tibettv. Thank you so much for watching.